Hello out there, all you internet masochists. Hoo boy, do I have an interesting video for you today. Recently, I stopped by the Denver Zine Library, or DZL for short, one of Denver's most iconic institutions, hands down one of the largest zine collections in the country. And I stumbled across this. Someone had just left a cracked magazine there. This is an issue of Cracked from winter 96-97, number 12. I believe this is an annual edition. So this is an original Cracked right here. Now, I know what you're saying. Hey Nick, isn't Cracked that listicle generator, the non-ironic clickhole, the bane of the internet owned by a massive media conglomerate? Well, that's what it is now. But it used to be a shitty Mad Magazine ripoff that tried to replicate the success and talent of Mad Magazine. This is a really crazy transformation for something to take, obviously, because a listicle generator like BuzzFeed or eBaum's World is obviously a very different format from like a full-fledged satire magazine with like art and writing and concepts and shit. But rest assured, Cracked was just as bad in its previous phase as it is in its current phase, which it didn't Cracked like die or something? Isn't Cracked like pretty much dead as a brand at this point? I guess it is. I figured that looking at some of the terrible jokes made in this issue of Cracked and comparing them to jokes made in Mad Magazine would be a good way to illustrate what ineffective satire looks like. As an aspiring satirist myself who takes the art of satire very seriously, I often get asked, hey, what does a bad satire look like? What is it when someone just misses the point entirely, just completely goes over home base and doesn't look out for stage 5, or whatever that metaphor is? Well, this is it right here. Just by comparing Cracked to Mad, I think you can get a really good idea of what effective satire looks like, the timeless, really well-written, well-illustrated, thought-provoking satire of Mad Magazine versus the imitative dreck of Cracked. Now, I've already made an entire video about Mad Magazine, their golden age during which they produced some of the greatest satire in American history, and their eventual decline. And they didn't fall prey to the same issues found in this issue of Cracked. They fell prey mainly to conglomeration and monopolization and an acquisition by Warner Bros. Cracked, on the other hand, is a subsidiary of Globe Communications Corp., but its background is a lot more shady, shrouded in secrecy. In fact, most of the artists don't even apply their own names to these articles. You don't even know who drew what because they don't have the really easily laid out artist and writer things like Mad Magazine had, and they don't have the departments beforehand either. Now, truth be told, Mad has some horrible articles too. I mentioned in my Mad video that the worst parts of Mad Magazine are hands down their movie parodies, at least during the period from the 60s to the early 90s when Mad was at its peak. The problem with the Mad Magazine movie parodies is that they parodize movies that are so good that they don't need to be roasted and don't need to be satirized. For instance, one of the jokes in the 2001 A Space Odyssey parody is to point out that there's product placement for Pan Am and Howard Johnson's, and Mad Magazine is like, what a sellout! Kubrick put product placement in 2001 A Space Odyssey, without considering that the product placement in 2001 A Space Odyssey is in fact by design, to lend this futuristic world a veneer of corporatized schlock, and make Pan Am look stupid, in fact, what with the gravitized magnet shoes and all. It's supposed to look stupid, and Kubrick knew that. Kubrick was essentially the greatest troll of all time before trolling was even a thing with 2001 A Space Odyssey. He conned tons of corporate sponsors and NASA itself into giving him a hefty budget because they thought that he'd be producing propaganda for the space race, when in fact he was just telling an extremely creative story. All this has been really well documented in the years since, but when Mad Magazine came out with their shitty satire of 2001 A Space Odyssey, they just point at the product placement and go, oh, what a goof. Kubrick really missed the ball on that one. Yes, product placement. Product placement is bad by default, and there can't be any deeper meaning or subtext or anything to it. That's an example of ineffective satire, where you miss a point. Hey, Editing Nicholas here. I just realized that a lot of the things I say in this video about Mad Magazine movie satires could also be said about CinemaSins. CinemaSins also makes a bunch of really stupid nitpicks that are explained directly by the film itself if you just pay attention and have more than 2 brain cells, but CinemaSins completely misses the point and then disguises their horrible film criticism as satire in much the same way as, your average Chris Stuckman or Jeremy Johns, or really surface level, low effort film reviews that don't really notice the nuances and little things about filmmaking that a lot of people, to be honest, don't notice. Effective satire necessitates serious observation. Like, just from a technical standpoint, if you're trying to make effective satire, I would recommend looking at an episode of classic MST3K, because MST3K, unlike CinemaSins, actually bothers to do a lot of research on the movies they're watching and make really funny references to other shit that is related to the movie. MST3K is an example of prime satire. I just thought I should say that. If MST3K is genius level satire, quite possibly the best film related satire ever made, then CinemaSins is the bottom, and maybe a Mad Magazine movie parody would be a little above a CinemaSins video, but about the same in terms of just completely missing the point that a lot of movies are trying deliberately to make. And just reading every movie is an extremely surface level thing, and missing things that are spelled out directly in the text. Another example that comes to mind is Mad Magazine's Star Wars parody, where Luke Skywalker talks about Earth, even though Earth isn't a planet in the Star Wars universe, and all the humans in Star Wars aren't from Earth, so it's not like he'd know what Earth was. And there's another thing, satire should ideally talk about the universe within its own parameters. If you're discussing a fictional universe, like the Star Trek universe, Lord of the Rings universe, Star Wars universe, whatever, you should approach it on its own terms, and you shouldn't just be like, oh, the IRS, man, isn't the IRS a headache? I kid you not. Luke Skywalker in the Star Wars parody in Mad Magazine is like, isn't the IRS just ass? And it's like, how do you know about the IRS? You're in Star Wars. You're not on Earth. So that just doesn't make any sense. It's just like they want to shit on the IRS, but they're doing it within the parameters of their Star Wars parody, which should just be a Star Wars parody. But again, I don't think you can effectively parody like Star Wars or Back to the Future, 2001: A Space Odyssey. They're just well-written, well-directed movies, and they're kind of flawless, so you kind of can't do that. On the other hand, if you were parodying something really stupid, like SpongeBob or Geegly with Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez, you could do that extremely well because those are shit. So this is what I would say effective satire really boils down to. You have to understand what is implied within the narrative that you're parodizing. For instance, within the narrative of SpongeBob, it's implied that SpongeBob is an adorable, fun little creature who's cool as fuck and everyone wants to be his friend. But if you're over the age of 7 and you watch SpongeBob with a critical eye, you realize, holy fuck, this thing, this abomination against animation has the most annoying voice in history, and I can't fucking stand SpongeBob. So you take the piss on SpongeBob. That's how satire should work, ideally. With a story that doesn't understand, a story that is not self-aware, inherently cognizant of how terrible it is. Like, for instance, Biodome. Another great example. Biodome thinks it's a fucking hilarious movie. But if you watch it for more than 10 seconds, you realize, hey, this movie's shit, so I can make fun of it. Free real estate for the aspiring satirist right there. Or The Big Bang Theory. There's a show that's absolute crap. You can make fun of The Big Bang Theory 10 ways to Tuesday because The Big Bang Theory doesn't understand that it's ass. It thinks it's this profound shit and that Sheldon and the bunch are just the coolest characters around. So by making fun of The Big Bang Theory, that's really effective satire. Anyway, let's talk about the articles in this amazing Cracked magazine, which was really a headache to get through because they are so shit. I'm not exaggerating here. This is the least funny stuff I've ever read, and Mad Magazine looks like a Renaissance work by comparison. I talk shit about Mad Magazine a bit because some of the shit in Mad Magazine isn't the greatest, but Cracked has aged like fucking milk. So you might have noticed here on the cover, Cracked is advertising their X-Men parody called X-Men. You get it because they're trans now. They used to be men, but now they're women. Now, Cracked made this an entire 5-page color insert. It's the only thing in color in the entire magazine. As you can see here, everything else is in black and white. Now, 5 pages is longer than every other article in this magazine, so you can tell they really put their eggs in one basket for this one with this transphobic trash parody that really wears thin after like the first page because the entire joke is just, oh, they're the X-Men, get it? This is like a passing comment you could make that might be kind of funny the first time you hear it. Oh, the X-Men. But then, like, by page 5, you're so sick of it because there's no joke other than, oh, Wolverine's in a dress now. Isn't this hilarious? Holy shit. They were men, now they're the X-Men. Haha, look at Cyclops. He's wearing a bra. Isn't this funny? And they just do this same joke for like 5 pages straight. Like, I don't care if you think, that, like, transphobia is funny or isn't funny or whatever. This joke is ass. It wears thin so fast. Like, the whole joke is just, oh no, now Wolverine will need to get his nails done, but his adamantium, see, like, it's like he has polish on his adamantium claws, or her adamantium claws, or whatever. It's really lame shit satire that doesn't, it's not even like about X-Men or shit in X-Men. They just think, oh wow, what if the X-Men were trans? That'd be so hilarious. So this has really aged poorly, and also it's just like terrible. I don't know what Cracked was thinking, but like this is just total shit. I've never read this like, it's not offensive because it's transphobic, which it is. It's offensive because it's just slaughtering my brain cells as I read this fucking boring garbage that just takes this joke and just like runs with it for 4 pages. And they were like, yeah, let's put this on the cover. This is the best of what we've got. Okay, here we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in Japan. Now, obviously, I don't think whoever drew this understood that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, being ninjas and all, would probably eventually go to Japan in one of their films or comics or the like, which eventually they did. They went to feudal Japan, I believe, in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, which wasn't a great movie by any means, but the author of this article seemingly doesn't understand that, like, yeah, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles going to Japan isn't exactly the wildest concept that provides the funniest situations. It'd be funnier if it was like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the 8 Mile stretch in Detroit. Somewhere you wouldn't really expect the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to show up that could provide some humorous situations. But here we just have like a shogun guy walks up to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and goes, nothing can defeat a Japanese shogun warrior, and then the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles pull out their super soaker guns and go, except 4 American soak gun warriors. And it's like, yeah, that's a joke, but it's just the kind of joke that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles would actually make if they were in Japan, because they're goofy and shit, and they like to goof off and make stupid jokes. So it's not like Cracked is like elevating the humor or anything. This is just exactly what the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles would say. I like to think that whoever drew this one was just kind of a closeted Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan, and this is kind of a fan fiction where he just kind of imagines what would happen if the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles went over to Japan. The parody doesn't even call them something different. It's literally just Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's kind of amazing Crack didn't get sued for copyright infringement. But yeah, there's just kind of a fan fiction where it's just like, oh, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles defeated the Shogun guy. They're like, we've conquered the evil Shogun. I guess that takes care of Japan's biggest villain. And then one of them's like, maybe not. It is Godzilla. And then it shows a bunch of Japanese people running away from Godzilla. And the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are like, better get some extra large nunchucks. And it's like, yeah, that's what the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles would say in a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles versus Godzilla crossover. But there's nothing inherently funny about that. That's just what they would say. There's no satire there. There's no parody, because you're not making fun of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You're just theorizing a hypothetical scenario that could happen with them. It probably has. There's probably been a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles versus Godzilla crossover somewhere. But the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles parodies don't stop there, because there's 2 other entire articles about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, Mad Magazine would obviously recognize that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were just kind of a passing fad, so they'd only devote 1 article to them, because in the grand scheme of things, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles don't have that much cultural relevance anymore. They were kind of just a temporary craze. A couple years, the world had Turtle Mania, and then it kind of died down. But this shit has just aged horribly, because Cracked acts like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are some kind of disgusting plague and they should be like shit on relentlessly, which, like, they're just Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Calm down, Crack. They're not that bad. Here we have Yertle the Mutant Ninja Turtle, which is a really shitty parody of the Dr. Seuss book Yertle the Turtle, which is like, kids these days are watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Back in my day, we had shit like Yertle the Turtle, which was so much better and taught way better lessons, and I miss the good old days. So we got a shitty fake Dr. Seuss book. I will admit the drawing looks enough like Dr. Seuss. They kind of got it nailed in that regard, but the rhyme scheme is all off. It doesn't even sound like Dr. Seuss. Then one day, his agent did call. He said, "Your sales are beginning to fall. We must act and think of a plan. I'll come right over as soon as I can." There's not enough syllables in those lines. You do know that Dr. Seuss has a very specific rhyme scheme, right? Like, it's one of the most recognizable poetic structures of all time, and Crack can't even nail it. It's just like, they don't even know how a Dr. Seuss book sounds. Have they ever read one? I don't know if they have. But yeah, this shit is like really fucking dated. It's like, oh, the fucking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, what if they were in a shitty Dr. Seuss book? The Dr. Seuss who was better in my day, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are evil and awful. Fuck the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Here we have a really great article, Future Turtle Mania Product Tie-ins. So they come up with fake products that would happen in the future, apparently, even though, like I said, Turtle Mania only lasted like 2 years, so it's not like everyone went crazy about them for that long. They kind of just died off. I mean, people still know who they are, obviously, but they're not like, they don't have that much staying power. So here we have like tortoise pizza, like a fake pizza that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles would get. And it's like, yeah, there's probably been a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle tie-in with some kind of pizza company. In fact, I think they've had both like Pizza Hut and Domino's tie-ins in both the new and old movies, right? So this isn't satire, this is just something that's actually happened. Here we have the Ninja Cowabunga, 2 rides in 1. It's like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle themed roller coaster. That probably exists somewhere, or probably existed at some point, I assume. I mean, there's probably at least one Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles themed roller coaster or something. This isn't that crazy, this isn't like that insane. Oh wow, you mean to tell me that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles who eat pizza would be sponsored by pizza and have a pizza related to them? Oh wow, this is so crazy. Now again, the problem with this is that Cracked is assuming that it's like ridiculous that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles eat pizza and live in the sewer, even though I'm relatively sure that Kevin Eastman, when he made the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, was aware that it's absurd for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to eat pizza in a sewer. That's just like a ridiculous concept on its own. You know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is an extremely self-aware franchise which understands on a basic level like how goofy it is. It doesn't make any sense. It's just like random shit. They're Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's like Kevin Eastman just came up with these words on the fly. It's brilliant. I like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and this article is shit because it's like, oh dang, the kids these days are being taught to eat pizza and live in the sewer, and these Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are living in the sewer. Isn't that ridiculous? Here, let's make an article about how ridiculous it is to live for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to live in the sewer. And it's like, I'm pretty sure Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is aware that it's ridiculous to live in the sewer. I think that's like the whole appeal, is that it's a ridiculous, goofy idea. That's why they caught on, you know. Crack doesn't seem to understand that, really. I want to bring up a specific case here. There's a feature that hipster alt-right edgelord Gavin McInnes used to do in Vice, back before Vice was branded to millennials and took on a left-leaning slant. It was marketed at edgy Gen Xers and took on a right-leaning slant, and that's why Gavin McInnes is one of the three founders. So there was a point in time where you could pick up a copy of Vice, and about a third of it would be written by prominent right-wing shithead Gavin McInnes. Gavin McInnes had a feature called Fashion Do's and Don'ts, where he would essentially just go around Toronto and Manitoba and shit, because keep in mind he's Canadian. Despite being an American media pundit, he's actually Canadian, much like Steven Crowder, Stefan Molyneux, Jordan Peterson, all these goobers who come down here from Canada and think they can analyze American politics better than us Americans. Gavin McInnes used to be Canadian. He'd go around the streets of Canadian cities, take pictures of people without their consent, and then write shitty things about them like, this guy probably tries on too many glasses, and it's just a picture of some guy like taking a nap in a restaurant, or a picture of some girl who's wearing a shirt that makes her topless, right? And the caption is like, doesn't this girl know she's topless? And it's like, yeah, Gavin, I'm pretty sure she's aware that she's topless, or she wouldn't wear a shirt that ensures that she's topless and that her breasts are showing. I'm pretty sure she knows that, Gavin. What are you pointing out here? Gavin McInnes would just go around and take pictures of complete strangers without their permission and then just talk shit about them in Vice. It's genuinely bizarre considering what Vice has grown into, like the most, woke, millennial, left-leaning type thing possible, where they try and appeal to like millennials and older Gen Zers, definitely on the left side of the spectrum. But it used to be just like this shitty fucking frat humor garbage where Gavin McInnes would just take pictures of people and talk shit about them, and he thought that was what roasting was, even though to roast someone effectively you have to know who they are, and you can't just make random comments about random people you know nothing about, because that's not how roasting works. Yet another example of ineffective satire I figured I should mention, because Gavin McInnes, I know you're watching this, I know at least one of your fans is watching this, and I don't like you, and I think your brand of comedy belongs in the dumpster. Anyway, continuing on with Cracked. Now, one of the most bizarre aspects of this Cracked from 1996/97, I'm pretty sure some of the stuff in here is reprinted, so maybe going back to like 1989 at the earliest. There's just a ton of straight-up racism in here. Now, Mad wasn't always the most forward-thinking with social issues, but there's not a Mad magazine article I can really think of where I go, yeah, this is just needlessly racist. But here we have a really shitty article called The True Story of the Lone Ranger, where the Lone Ranger just talks shit about Tonto. He's just like, oh, that stupid Indian was shooting at me, and fucking me up, and he ruined my career. I know that some people say Tonto is like cultural appropriation or whatever. He's actually a good, like, representation of Native Americans early on. Like, Tonto's a great character. Tonto's cool as fuck, right? But here this article, this shitty satire, just paints Tonto out to be like this horrible dumbass who, like, ruins the Lone Ranger's career, even though in the original radio serials and like comics and shit, Tonto is like a faithful companion and a good pal and a stand-up guy, a pretty positive representation of a Native American, to be honest. This article here is just fucking racist for no reason. It's just like, oh, the fucking redskin. Yeah, they use the word redskin in here. Just like ridiculously racist for absolutely no fucking reason. And I don't get it, because again, this is freaking 1997 here. And they don't even call the Lone Ranger anything else like Madwood. They're just like, the Lone Ranger up here. I guess they're not scared of copyright infringement for the Lone Ranger, because he's a pretty old character, but still, like, you could come up with a creative, like, satire name for him, you know? Here we have another great example of just, like, how weirdly racist this 90s cracked is. We have just drawing of an Asian guy with big buck teeth and a little bow on top. Again, this isn't like the Jerry Lewis era back in the 60s where yellow face was considered acceptable. This is the fucking 90s here, 96 to 97. They just draw these, like, exaggerated caricatures of Asian people that look like they're straight out of, like, the frickin' 50s. I have no idea what they were thinking here, but this is just, like, really stupid and lame. This here is one of the weirdest articles. The odd thing about cracked movie parodies is that the text is, like, really small and it's all different fonts. There's absolutely no consistency to it. But this here is ostensibly, like, a parody of Batman 89, and they draw the Joker, the Jack Nicholson Joker, even though he's not even really dressed like how the Jack Nicholson Joker was dressed in Batman 89, and the caricature style is so shit that you can barely even tell it's supposed to be Jack Nicholson. But they make all these shitty jokes, and I don't think whoever wrote this article even watched the movie Batman 89, because they missed some pretty obvious details about Batman 89. And the other problem here is that the Joker throughout this entire article just acts like how the Joker would actually act in Batman. Like he just, like, sprays people with, you know, squirting flour and hand buzzer and all this shit. And it's shit that he would just do in the comic, you know, because he's the Joker. He would just, like, do a joy buzzer and shit. But Cracked is like, isn't the Joker funny because he's using a squirting flower? Like, yeah, no shit, that's what the Joker does in a Batman comic, and I'd rather read an actual Batman comic than this shitty parody, because there's nothing here that isn't just in the source material. It's just like reading a Batman comic, except it's shit, and it thinks it's really funny. For instance, in this panel here, we have a great example of Cracked not being aware of the inherent subtext of whatever media franchise they're satirizing. So the interviewer says, speaking of Batman, he claims that with you out of the way, he's cleaned up Gotham City. And then the Joker says, doesn't that dope in a flying mouse suit know that the city is full of real jokers, like the mayor, the city council, the police commissioner, etc., etc., hee hee hoo ho ha ha heap? First off, the Joker would say something like, the dope in a flying mouse suit. That's just something the Joker would actually say about Batman. So there's nothing satirical here, because I think, like, I've even heard the Joker say that before. But also, Joker's point here about the mayor and city council and police commissioner and everyone being corrupt is by design. I think whoever wrote this hasn't read a fucking Batman comic in their life. They're like, wow, isn't it crazy that, like, Gotham City's corrupt? It's almost like it's by design or something. Like, yeah, no shit, that's by design. Bob Kane and Bill Finger are aware of that. That's kind of the point, is that Gotham City is corrupt. That's how it's always been. There's never been a point where you go, oh, Gotham City, the shining example of law and order and stability. It's corrupt by design. It's meant to be that way. But here, Cracked really thinks they're making a poignant observation that nobody's thought of before by saying, like, why does everyone pick on the Joker when the city council and police commissioner and everyone are also corrupt? And it's like, yeah, it's a systemic problem. That's the whole point. That's why Gotham City is an effective environment, because it's about systemic problems and systemic corruption. That the Joker isn't the only problem, that the cops are also shit and the city council's also shit, all the politicians are paid off. This is by design, Cracked. You're not saying anything special here. Batman already knows what you've pointed out, and they're laughing in your stupid face. Joker makes some really crap jokes, like he puts Mickey Mouse ears on Tim Burton here because, Tim Burton used to work at Disney and now works for Disney again. Tim Burton's sold out, but like Tim Burton's hairstyle here, notice, it's all frizzy. This is how he was back in, the early 90s. So Joker says, when you try to take these Mickey Mouse ears off, say goodbye to your hair. They're stuck on with super glue. Your head will be The Shining. Hoo-hoo. Get it? Because he's Jack Nicholson, so he references another Jack Nicholson movie. Obviously, if Tim Burton were to take off these Mickey Mouse ears, his hair wouldn't actually all come off in one go. Probably just a few strands, because as you can see here, Tim Burton's hairstyle is really like frizzy, and it's not really like combed over or anything. So the joke doesn't even make any sense. This article is just needlessly shitting on Tim Burton. Like, I get that, people don't like Tim Burton now, but the Joker puts Tim Burton on a chair and he's like, sit down on this cushion, and then it like blows up and Joker's like, it's what I call my 5 easy pieces cushion. It just blew Tim into 5 easy pieces. Get it? Because he's Jack Nicholson? That'll teach him to call the movie Batman. He should have named it after the star, me, the Joker. But like, why would Tim Burton call his Batman movie Joker? It's not Joker. Todd Phillips made Joker because that's a movie where the Joker is the star. But in Batman 89, Batman's the star, so it's called Batman. Pretty simple shit that Crack doesn't seem able to pick up on. They also point out that Tim Burton wants Joker to be in Batman 2, even though Joker wasn't in Batman 2, because it wouldn't have made any sense for him to be in Batman Returns, because he died at the end of the first one. So, like, I just have no idea what Cracked is even talking about here. Really terrible satire, any way you look at it. Another issue that I've noticed quite a bit is that Cracked has a problem with repetition. I don't think they had any editors on hand, because you'll just get the same joke twice in the same issue. Obviously, this kind of thing would never happen with Mad Magazine, because they have a really good editorial staff going on. But here in Cracked, it's just like they'll repeat the same joke like 5 pages apart, and you feel like you're going crazy. For instance, here's the article, Dangerous Toys, which features a virus farm and baby's first meat department. Kind of funny, right? And yet, just 10 pages prior, here's Kenny the Cockroach's toy tenement sale, which is yet another little catalog of fake toys that they thought would be funny, which features toys like My First Gene Splicer and Play Meat. Very similar to Virus Farm and Baby's First Meat Department. So, here's the question, Cracked. Couldn't you have just picked whichever of these articles was the funnier and discarded the other one because it was redundant? Because you can't have that many ideas for toys without some of them looking repetitive and coming off like derivative of what you just read. And for a satire magazine like this to be effective, you want to feel like you're getting a lot of variety, a lot of different jokes, and you don't just want to read the same jokes over and over. Okay, here's another example, right? We got Supermarket Checkout Clerk. This is their superhero parody section, right? Supermarket Checkout Clerk. where the joke is that, oh, he's like a normal, he's like a guy with a normal job, but he's like a superhero too, right? So it says, watch him make his mark in the world 1,000,000 times a day as he changes prices, right? Pretty funny joke if it was just that one. But then, just a couple pages later, we got, the Blue Funk is one superhero who has made his mark on life. Actually, he has made 573 trillion marks in the short time he has worked as a supermarket price changer. So it's like we got two jokes about superheroes being supermarket price changers within the same 10 pages. Like, I don't think this is a coincidence. I can just see it, like at the Cracked Office. You know, one artist goes, that new superhero article we've got coming up, I'm going to make it so that there's a superhero who's a supermarket price changer. And then someone overhears that and goes, oh, I can put that in my article. And no one will ever know, just like Dan Backslide. But here's the thing, Cracked. I fucking noticed, and it makes me feel like I'm going fucking crazy. Because this kind of joke is way too specific to pop up more than once in a single issue of your shitty magazine without me assuming that some kind of weird fucking plagiarism or something must have gone on. Completely breaks your immersion. And then just a couple pages later, we get yet another superhero who works at the supermarket. Ultra-observant express line inspector. Offenders who bring more than 10 items to the supermarket express line will now have to answer for their crimes against humankind. Couldn't they come up with any jokes about superheroes besides just, hey, wouldn't it be funny if a superhero worked at the supermarket and did supermarket things? Wouldn't that be fucking hilarious? Here we have a catalog of things that a superhero might want. Mad Magazine also has fake catalogs, so this is yet another obvious ripoff of a Mad Magazine format. We got the 1996 catalog for costumed heroes with stuff like Detecto, the wrist radar device. Crack thinks it's funny that a superhero might want a radar device while flying, and it's like, yeah, wouldn't they? Don't most superheroes probably carry around some kind of like compass or radar or something so they know where they're going? This isn't funny. It's just something that a superhero would actually want and would be useful for an actual superhero. So you're not really like making some kind of clever, witty observation about the superhero genre here. You're just kind of pointing out the obvious. Like, yeah, a superhero would want a wrist radar. That sounds like a useful thing for a superhero to have. Why wouldn't they want that? The really weird thing about reading Cracked magazine is that nobody is allowed to be original. Nobody is allowed to express themselves like genuinely in a creative, artistic way, because everyone is trying to just look like Al Jaffe and Paul Coker and Jack Davis and everyone. They're just trying to imitate all these much better artists, and they even rip off the little Sergio Aragonés guys who are just plopped in the middle of each article. And it's really ineffective, and nobody is allowed to like come up with their own cool style that like defines the magazine, because they're just trying to trick everyone into thinking, oh, I picked up a Mad magazine. Oh wait, shit, it's a Cracked magazine. And instead of Alfred E. Newman, we got Sylvester P. Smythe here. This was Cracked's Alfred E. Newman. Looks like a fucking Cabbage Patch Kid. Oh yeah, this is some icon shit here. Don't you want a free Super Sylvester t-shirt? Yeah, no thanks, Cracked. Your magazine sucks ass. Here we have yet another great example of Cracked magazine completely just missing the fucking point. Still more Dick Tracy bad guys. Here up top we got Dick Tracy saying, Tracy to Breathless, I think Tess is on to us. And the whole joke is like, Dick Tracy is cheating on Tess Trueheart with Breathless Maloney. And it's like, yeah, Cracked. That's the whole conflict of the Dick Tracy movie. Did you not watch it? Did you not notice that Dick Tracy is cheating on Tess with Breathless? That's like the major plot point. You didn't get that? Okay, whatever. Anyway, this whole article is just like, they make these goofy Dick Tracy villains like Nostradamus Beekman. right? Like a guy with a big nose. There's probably been a Dick Tracy villain with a big nose. There's like 100 of them. Not just the ones in the movie. There's like hundreds. There's probably one with a big nose. But Cracked is like, we're really making fun of Dick Tracy here by making gangster villains who have an outrageous appearance, like Blockhead here, who has a square head. Like, is Blockhead that much more outrageous than Flat Top? I'm pretty sure the Dick Tracy movie is well aware that its villains look ridiculous, so you're not actually doing anything witty or making any kind of commentary, any kind of substantive criticism of the Dick Tracy movie here by going, these fucking bad guys look so ridiculous. Let's make some that look even more ridiculous, but not really, because, like, the original ones were already ridiculous. Let's just make some more. Let's write our own Dick Tracy fanfic here. Oh wow, it's Cannon Face. Guy with a cannon for a face. Wow, this is so much more outrageous than like Little Face or Prune Face or those much more realistic and grounded villains from the Dick Tracy movie. Those are realistic, but ours are like outrageous and crazy. And it's like Cracked. Dick Tracy is aware that its villains are like look crazy. That's the whole appeal. And you can't really go crazier than those. Like they're already like ridiculous. Again, this is just a great example of like satire not understanding when something is self-aware. That like Dick Tracy knows that its gangsters are like, you know, look wacky. That's like the whole point. That's like it knows that. Cracked. They also have movie parodies for like stuff that Mad Magazine didn't cover, I guess. They got one for like Family Ties here, and the whole joke is just that Michael J. Fox is on Family Ties, and then he got famous, and then they got like a parody of the Arsenio Hall movie Coming to America, but you can't tell that like it's even Arsenio Hall because the caricature style is so shit. So it's like Mort Drucker, except it's even more incoherent. Just trying to look like Mort Drucker, but doing a really shitty job of it, so you can't even tell it's supposed to be Arsenio Hall. You can barely even tell where one character ends and the next begins. It's practically an avant-garde piece. So yeah, overall, Cracked in magazine form, I think, is a great example of ineffective satire, and any aspiring satirist should probably read at least one issue of Cracked. I mean, I know it's a chore, it's really hard to get through this shit, but you can read it and get a pretty good idea of how not to do satire, because this is some of the least funny shit I've ever seen. Like, when Mad self-deprecates itself, it doesn't make sense, because Mad is actually, like, pretty good, but Cracked is, like, ass, and it only self-deprecates itself once in this entire issue. But that's the only funny part, because, like, yeah, Cracked is ass. Cracked is, like, actually ass. It's actually, like, a really horrible attempt to capture what made Mad great, and just, like, fail miserably because they don't understand basic shit about pop culture. They're, like, really out of touch, really racist and transphobic in some areas, which, like, sure, not every Mad Magazine article is aged the best, but it never comes off as just, like, blatantly fucking racist or whatever. This is just like shit. At the end of the day, though, I am glad that we had Cracked, because if we hadn't had this original primordial version of Cracked, then today we wouldn't have some more news, the world's least funny, most repetitive, bland, tick-and update ripoff. And the world without some more news would be pretty lame. We wouldn't have Cody Johnson, the hilarious hobo, rattling off extremely widespread news events with a funny voice and pretending to be insane. So at the end of the day, despite the Cracked magazine being total shit, we did get something great out of it. We got some more news. At least we got that. So, yeah, moral of the story, great job, Cracked. You really left a legacy behind that we can all be proud of, that is amazing and awesome. Anyway, that's it for this video. Sayonara, suckers.